Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds! So nerds!
Hello,
nerds!
Now with this campaign, bang, dang, it's and Drew, come roll with the gang gang. Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Woo! Sammy Ravelo in the house. Oh my God, dude, that was one of the best hello nerds I've heard in a long time.
I'm hoping to make your trailer.
Oh, you don't mess around, my friend. All right, so for those who are not familiar with who you are, who is Sammy Ravelo?
Okay, great. I'm going to try to give you the shortest version as possible. I just retired from the NYPD last July. I did 26 years. I came here to the United States when I was 16 years old. My parents brought me here. I was undocumented at the time, and after graduating from high school, I had to wait a couple of years before I got my documents. Once in order, I joined the U.S. Navy, went to the first Gulf War. When I came back, I went to Bronx Community College, was in student government in Bronx Community College, then joined the NYPD. And obviously in the NYPD, I was a detective. We actually was a first responder during the 9/11 attacks. That's a whole lower story on its own. I was in the Warren Squad, and I retired as a lieutenant special operations from the 46th precinct this last July. So I don't have a career. I'm not a career politician. I've never been in politics. And I decided to run for Congress because I believe that all those people that I just mentioned are lacking representation in Congress. And I want to give them a voice.
Well, first of all, thank you for your service in the Navy and in the police department. And I guess the other thing I'm really curious about is, you know, it's hard not to hear about the New York Police Department and not think about all of the conversation there was when Bloomberg was running about stop and frisk. And, you know, I was would love to get your perspective on that, because I grew up in New Jersey, in northern part of New Jersey, not far from New York. And we used to go to the city like almost every week, you know, to see a show or to have a nice dinner or, you know, go to Chinatown for some good dim sum. And I remember in the 80s, New York there were some tough times where it wasn't super safe. And then I think after Giuliani, Bloomberg, like things did seem to get better.
Right.
And so I'm not one to say like, oh, New York Police Department is terrible. Like, I was kind of curious, like, what's your take?
All right, excellent. I was actually part of that drive that brought New York City, what I say, back. Nobody wants to go back to the 80s and 90s. And I mean, it's a consensus from every citizen in the city. You know, nobody wants to go back there. I'm going to answer your first question specifically as it pertains to stop, question, and frisk. Sure. Stop, question, and frisk was a policy that was implemented by Bratton back in 1993, and it was part of the broken windows policy, and it wasn't meant to use as an enforcement tool, which is what eventually ended up happening. And Bloomberg has to own it. And I just want to make sure everybody understands the majority of the police officers were against stop, question, and frisk used as an enforcement tool, and the majority of the people that were affected by that were the minority in the poor communities. A lot of people in the police department, police officers, were against that. So, like I said, at the end of the day, Bloomberg has to own it. Part of it, when it was used properly, ended up helping the city of New York come back to where it is now. One of the best cities, in my opinion, that it is in the United States. And the majority of the people actually, do support law enforcement because everybody wants to make sure that they're safe in their communities.
Yeah, well, I guess is your position on that topic? I think Bloomberg's position was we probably, or I think he said we did overdo it. We were overzealous. We got to a point where it wasn't sort of delivering, like we weren't getting the incremental benefits by doing it so much.
Right.
But there is a place for it.
Yes.
But I've heard other people say like, oh, it should never, ever have been done at all. I was curious, where do you land on that one?
No. Bloomberg hit it right in the nose. What happens is they used it as an enforcement tool, as opposed to an investigative tool. You know, what happens is that, you know, nobody wants a rapist in their community, you know, and we want to be able to say, listen, we have a male Dominican that looks like Sammy, you know, Ravelo, and, you know, and a police officer looks at, you know, a male Hispanic like me, dark skin, walking around, he's 5'6", make sure, and he's raping young girls. You want to make sure that the police officers have that probable reason to believe that, you know, they're going to stop and question. Doesn't necessarily mean frisk. Hey, what are you doing? We're looking for somebody that looks like you. And every citizen wants, you know, I don't think every citizens are not against that. It's when you overuse that excuse to stop young men and women, especially in poor communities, and start finding other stuff. And that's where I think we kind of shot ourselves in the foot, no pun intended.
Yeah. No, that sounds like a very kind of nuanced and balanced approach. You're not like all on one side or all on the other, which I think is healthy and often the most practical way to kind of go after issues. What do you think are like the biggest? I know stop and frisk was a hot topic nationally given the Bloomberg campaign. What do you think your constituents are most concerned about these days in terms of how government and their lives are going?
Okay. One thing I just want to make sure people know, I'm running for New York City. I mean, New York's 16th congressional district, which is the north part of the Bronx and the south part of Westchester. So we're talking about two different counties in one district. The north part of the Bronx is Riverdale, Co-op City, and Mount Vernon, and Wakefield. And the south part of Westchester are the cities of Yonkers, Mount Vernon, and New Rochelle. The reason why I have to make sure that I tell people that is because the majority of the people, when it comes to police, they are supportive of the police and they want to make sure that they're safe. Nobody wants to make sure. We don't want to go back we don't want to go back to the 80s and 90s. Now, having said that, when it comes to government, I believe that most of the people in the district, which is a majority minority district right now, they really want somebody that's going to represent them. 3/4 of the district doesn't know who our representative is. It's Elliot Engel. He's been there 30 years. Good guy. But I believe it's time for the next generation of leaders to represent them in Congress. So that's where I think the district is. They want to now start making sure that they want to feel represented. And I don't think that the majority of the district doesn't feel that that's the case. Yeah.
So what is it that you think, what are the issues that you feel like you would shine a brighter light on or put more effort into if you were in DC representing this district than the current congressman?
Oh, for sure. Well, we can start. Where do I start? But I'm going to give you two specific issues in order not to be redundant. One of them would be probably DACA. That's one thing, one issue that our current representative says, you know, he is 100% supportive, yet it's all close to 30 years and we haven't resolved that problem. Me personally, I could have been one of those kids that would have been a DACA recipient had I come at a different time. You know, I was undocumented, so I really feel for them. There is no way that the United States cannot grant the people in this status permanent status. I feel very strongly about that. That's number one. And education. We've lost monies when it comes to education in our communities, especially the lower income communities, the communities of color. everything starts and stops with education. How much money we spend on their education is really what it boils down to. So I really want to make sure that we are investing more money in education and as opposed to what it's being spent right now.
And when you say education, are you thinking more on like elementary school, high school, university, trades? Like where do you want the money to go?
I tell you, it's all of the above. I'm going to tell you because, no, seriously, right now, and if anybody that watches my rollout video, I started with the debt that our college students are coming out with. We're coming out. There's a group of Americans right now, a big class of Americans right now, this generation of Americans that are coming out with student loans that are overwhelming them. And my boys are in that group where the first 10 years of their life, they got to be worried about paying student debt as opposed to starting to save for their nest egg and for their retirement, which I had the opportunity to do. That's number one. But K to 12. Right now, our educational system is based on 20th century as opposed to 21st century. And Andrew Yang perfectly said it. We got to start finding solutions for 21st century. We got to start for 21st century problems. We need 21st century solutions. And I love that because, how are we going to still have the same model from 1945 in our educational system when we're in 2020? So that's our whole education system has to change.
Yeah,
definitely.
Now you referenced Yang, and this channel started basically a year ago.
I read your bio.
Back when Yang was still just getting on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I'm curious what's your take on him and where I noticed you support the freedom dividend. Like what was your sense of him as a candidate and where he was trying to take the country, and how much of that do you bring with you to your campaign, and where do you have honest differences of opinion as well?
Yeah, great question. I actually did not pay too much attention to Andrew Yang, to be honest with you, until and I'm going to give him a shout out. I brought Jodis de la Rosa came to my campaign as my field director, and he was the one that started telling me about some of his policies. He actually gave me his book. I haven't had a chance to read the whole book because I'm in the middle of a campaign and I'm a huge underdog. But a lot of the things that I like about Yang is his human-based solutions to problems. And that's exactly how we should approach government. And one of the things that I've noticed about Yang and his followers, he doesn't have this passionate group of, or he has this passionate group of followers that don't hate everybody else, and you could be either Republican, you could be a Democrat, because I am a Democrat. I'm neither left or right, what I call myself, or center left or center right. I'm center forward. And I identify a lot with that. The freedom dividend, obviously, finally, and I didn't start my campaign being supportive of the freedom dividend, but it makes sense because right now we're losing 60 to 70,000 jobs a month on automation. All right, what are we doing with these people? Okay, we're going to have a solution of trying to retrain people, but you can retrain all we want. If there's no jobs for them, what's going to happen with these group of folks that have been probably working in a factory for 35 years and now find themselves out of a job? It's very hard to start all over again, especially when you're later on in life. So let's start, and now we have these mean tested programs that are, keeping people where they're supposed to. So it makes sense. It's something that, although I'm not campaigning as the first part or the primary focus of my campaign is it's not the freedom dividend, but it's going to be a focal point of my campaign because that's where the future is going. And I like that about Andrew Yang.
What is it like when you're out there talking to constituents and they hear about your support for the freedom dividend? Do they know what it is? Do they like it? Are they concerned? Like, where do they?
Yeah, a lot of people are not familiar with it.
Mhm.
I don't, and the ones that do have heard it, have heard about it in a negative way. And
Mm.
what do I mean by that? Is okay, free money. This district doesn't like the fact that you're telling them, hey, listen, you're gonna get free money from the government. They don't like that. It's a misconception. All
Mhm.
right. They don't. So you have to, you have to make sure that you understand. Listen, we're getting rid of welfare programs. We're getting rid of a lot of programs that, like I said, that are mean tested, that are
Mhm.
really are haven't benefited, especially the people haven't benefited the people that were supposed to benefit. So and when you got to tie it into also the fact that we are losing jobs. This is like a monthly stimulus to the economy when you put people in money's hands, especially the people that are going to put it back into the economy. So there is a lot of nuances to the
Mhm.
freedom dividend that you have to, sometimes you don't have a chance to explain, but when you have that chance, you like I said, you explain it. I'm in the position, obviously, that like I said, I don't start with the freedom dividend.
Mhm.
I don't. It's probably one of the things that when I catch the attention of a supporter, and I have a chance to explain it, obviously, they're once they know most of what it entails, they're pretty receptive to it.
Well, what do you think of all? You have a lot of issues on your website, which I should let people know is sammyravello.com.
Right.
Which of the issues on there do you find like really fires up people and where they're like, yes, I totally agree with that? Because it sounds like freedom dividend, they're like maybe initially skeptical and then eventually like kind of like curious about it. What's
Yeah.
what's the thing that really energizes your district?
Definitely, it's education and safety. We have a lot of, if it's the northern, like I said, it's the northern part of New York and the southern part of Westchester, which is one of the most expensive areas. They got to have a lot of homeowners. We have a lot of people that care about their safety. So it's definitely, and they like the fact that our service to our country and the fact that we spent that long in the NYPD, making sure that we kept people safe. It's two of the issues that people say. Listen, we like where your positions are because we support the police. We support law and order. We don't support bad
Mhm.
behavior from the cops, but we support law and order. And I tell you, 95% of the people in this district like that, and they want to make sure that you're gonna keep them safe. So education, I would say, is number one. Law and order is safe. Their safety is number two, and they want to make sure that you are going to be there to make sure that they're safe.
So you talked about your district, including on the northern part, Westchester, and then you've got the northern part of Bronx in the bottom part.
Right.
Is
No, northern
that
part of, I'm sorry, northern part of Westchester. I'm sorry, northern part of the Bronx,
and the southern
southern
part
part of
or Westchester,
yeah,
right?
yeah, okay, yeah.
Is that like a are the people in those two parts of your district similar, or it sounds like they're kind of different?
Oh,
Like,
the
why is
unique
that even
part,
a district?
yeah. Question of the century. I believe it. Yeah, no, I believe it was gerrymandered that way to keep the current congressman in Congress.
Mm.
It is 6 different areas in the district, and there's 6 different issues. So each area has its own separate issue. The southern part of Westchester has three cities, which is Yonkers, Mount Vernon, and obviously the New Rochelle, which is
Mhm.
the centerpiece of
Oh, yeah.
the coronavirus right
Oh,
now.
yeah.
But
Mhm.
it's 6 different. So you have to make sure that you know the issues for each city, and each city it's its own entity. It is very weird, and it was gerrymandered. So yeah, the issues are different. You have projects in a certain part of New York City housing and certain part of the
Mhm.
district, and you have one of the most expensive areas in the whole United States, which is Scarsdale. It's also in the district. So you have to make sure that you are there for both. And believe it or not, safety is a paramount for both areas. So
Yeah,
we're ready for that.
That links that is some common thread. I mean, I know people who I went to school with people who lived in Scarsdale. They seemed like they were pretty well off, and then so it's such an interesting district. I mean, our system is so strange. But let me ask you about New Rochelle, because a lot of people had never heard of New Rochelle until recently.
Yeah.
And I guess that's where they're kind of like saying, oh, this is like a hot spot and we want to really clamp down. What is your take on this whole Corona thing and how the government at the local and federal level is responding?
All right. Obviously, I believe the response is a little late. That's my opinion federally on the federal level. With New Rochelle, there's a big misconception that we are here. And full disclosure, I lifelong Bronx resident, very proud, moved to New Rochelle a year and 2 months ago. The southern part of New Rochelle, I live in the northern part, is under containment. People believe that they are in quarantine, that they're roadblocks and you can't leave, and no, it's not like that. It's a containment zone, and people are free to go and open their businesses or anything like that. The National Guard came here because there were a few cases initially of people that had the coronavirus, which is compared to the rest of the population, it seemed like very high. But as we continue to see this corona thing is spreading very fast. My take with the whole, like I said, New Rochelle, I believe they've done the best job that they could have, given the circumstances. It's a small city, and this National Guard is here to help out. But it's pretty much a containment zone, and I just want to make sure that everybody adheres to the local officials when it comes to when they make an announcement as far as the containment, because we want to make sure we stop this. Doesn't matter what party you're from. This is not a party issue. This is a human issue, which is Nerds for Humanity. It's a human issue. So I want to try to keep party politics out of this. I believe the response from the current administration was a little slow, but right now we want to make sure that whatever they put out, we adhere to that.
Yeah, completely. I mean, this is something that the virus doesn't care what party you're in.
Exactly.
Yeah. So now, I'm curious about your decision to run and what that's been like, because you served in the Navy, you were a detective in the police department. These strike me as professions where it's all about professionalism. Ooh, do you hear that?
No.
Tones? You don't hear
that was probably one of my ringtones.
Maybe there's some donations coming in.
I hope so.
So one of the things is like the Navy, the police department. I feel like, wow, that's like a place where you have to be a master of your craft. You have to really be a professional. You're accountable, life and death situations, and it's about results and discipline. And now you're a candidate for Congress. And for a lot of us, civilians, it's like, oh man, that's just like a whole circus. And I'm curious, like, what's it like, the transition from Navy, sort of member of the Navy, service member, detective, to politician?
Yeah. Yes, it's crazy. Yeah, it's a different transition. What made me decide finally that I should run, or it's the right thing to do, was all the little groups that I've been a part of, whether it's an immigrant, whether I was a veteran or a police officer. All those groups are underrepresented. Give you one piece of information. In the 60s and 70s, 70% of the people that were served in Congress were veterans. Right now, it's less than 10%. that covers the veterans group. When it comes to law enforcement, one thing that I've noticed is that very few law enforcement officers decide to run for Congress, and most of the laws that are implemented we're asking our police officers who are taxed to begin with to start solving these problems. Sometimes they're not even equipped or even trained to deal with them. For example, mental health, but you're asking our police officers to do that. And DACA recipients, immigration, a lot of people, we don't have that many immigrants in a country of immigrants that are serving in Congress. So those are the things that I saw, and I decided, hey, you know what, let me throw my hat in the ring because I think I have the experience. I'm not a career politician, and I don't believe in career politicians, to be honest with you. I think there are more of a problem than the solution. So, those were one of the reasons why I decided to throw my hat in the ring.
And what's it been like as a candidate? Like, what's the day in the life of Sammy Ravelo for Congress like? Well,
it's getting up early and knocking on doors and talking to constituents, going to parties. The Democratic Party, for all your subscribers, they're not supporting me. They're supporting the establishment. I believe that not just the Democratic Party, both parties, they like it that way. But I believe strongly that out of all the people that are running, which are, 3 others and the incumbent, I am the most qualified to to serve this district based on my background. But it's a lot of walking and a lot of knocking on doors and, asking people. But I tell you, once people know who Sammy Ravelo is, the response is, I tell you, unbelievable. And really, I am really happy, really happy.
You are not the first person that's been on this show that's said, "Hey, look, I'm not the anointed one in the Democratic Party." And I mean, I get why the Democratic Party wants continuity, and maybe they like the devil they know, and maybe they have relationships and history. But I guess my understanding would have been well, in a primary, of course, the incumbent has advantages, but it's kind of it's a free market and it's a competitive system. Do you feel like there are just structural impediments to you competing for votes the same way? Or do you think what that the Democratic Party favors someone else? How does that affect you? Does that hurt you? How does that hurt your campaign?
Well, no. The only reason why that hurts my campaign is the incumbent, which is like I said, he's been there 30 years. He's built those relationships. He's got that built-in advantage.
Right.
But I tell you right now, I would say a third of the elected officials that are probably going to publicly go out and support him have probably told me it's time for him to let the next generation. And I'm going to say this one thing. Elliot Engel, who's the incumbent, 30 years ago, he told the incumbent back then that, it is time for you to retire because you've been in Congress too long. He told this to Mary Biaggi. All right. And Mary Biaggi at the time had 24 years in Congress. And here you are, he ran on term limits. And what happens is they get too comfortable. Now they serve the people that give them their donors. We're talking about the same problems of 30 years ago, and education and housing. We're talking about healthcare 30 years ago. So what happened in these 30 years that we're still talking about the same issues? So what I say is that although he has that built-in advantage because of his stand, he's staying in with the party. I know privately a lot of the Democratic elected officials have told me, "Hey, listen, we support you, and I hope you win." So I'm hoping we can raise money. That obviously that would help.
Yeah, well, tell me a little bit about what are you gonna do with the money? Let's say someone's watching this and they're like, either maybe someone in the comments was saying they're in the Bronx. I don't know if they're officially in your part of the Bronx. So there's there's probably some constituents who will stumble across this video, who may be in the audience right now, and they're like, maybe I like this guy. Maybe I'll donate a few bucks, chip in. What are you gonna do with that money? Like, what's the purpose of the campaign financing?
Okay, so I'm going to answer that question in two ways. Number one is yes. Anybody listening, SammyRavelo.com/. No thing. We really need as much money as we can. We are being outspent right now. $10,000 for $1 that we have. That's number one. If we're able to raise, that goes into our campaign headquarters. We're able to buy what's called VAN, which is the program that has all the registered voters in the district, and we'll be able to access them and reach out to them. Right now, our contact has been pretty much in the street. That program costs around $12,000. So we are trying to make sure that we raise, and we want to make sure that we bring in new personnel in the campaign, field directors and other key people that we're able to hire. But SammyRavelo.com/donate. We really need as much help as we can, because I tell you, our incumbent has raised $2 million. All right, and even with $2 million that he's using, and that's how he's been able to help out every single elected official that's in the district. We've only raised not even a fraction of that. But if we're able to raise, which I'm imploring people to help out, absolutely, we'll be able to do some of the things that we're able.
So that voter data, who owns that voter data?
The Democratic Party.
So if you run for Congress and you're trying to win the Democratic Party nomination in this district, are you saying you have to pay the Democratic Party $12,000 for the privilege of reaching out to the other Democratic voters to kind of make your case?
Yeah, that's pretty much. I believe it also show you the Republican voter, and there's also other information that's crucial for me, and that is that it has who has voted in the primary for the last 5 cycles, who hasn't, who votes in the general election. That's key for me, because if I'm able to convince some Democratic voters, hey, listen, come out in the next primary, come out and vote for me because you have an alternative. It's not the same guy that's 30 years ago. There's a lot of people that agree with me. There should be a change. It should be a changing of the guard. One of the reasons why I'm in this race is because I'm thinking about the future that I'm going to leave my kids. Not what I can do now, which I think it's one of the reasons why they come in, likes to stay there. He's thinking about now. I'm thinking about the future. But to answer your question is, yeah, it has a lot of information that's very useful to our campaign. And if I'm able to tap into that, 100% will be able to help. And I want to say one last thing. Is that I'm one of the few candidates that supports a universal basic income that actually has a real chance to win. We actually have a path to the nomination. I'm the only Latino. I'm the only Afro-Latino that is running in this district, in a district that's almost 40% Latino and has over 120,000 registered Latinos in the Democratic side that is running. And, that's very appealing. That's the base. Obviously, I am not running to be just supporting Latinos, because that's not who I am. But we actually have a chance to win and go to Washington and be one of the first ones to put down legislation that's probably going to start addressing, what we really care about, which is the universal basic income.
Well, as a nerd who loves data, it seems to me that if the party has basically a price to pay for that data, that is a massive disadvantage to anyone who can't afford that 12 grand.
Right.
So I'm kind of surprised, and this is probably just a naive citizen thinking American democracy is always a level playing field. But if you went to the Democratic Party and you say, hey, look, I have I don't know, 1,000, 2,000 signatures on my petition, but I don't have the $12,000. I need to have access to that list to compete. And of course, I'll support whoever the nominee is. What do you think they would say? Like,
no, it's like I said, at the end of the day, it's all business. And of course, they're going to say tough luck. And this is what really bothers me about our political system. Because, I believe that I've earned based on my experience, the right to run and represent the people of this district. I served my entire life. It's been of service to our country and to our citizens, and one of the first policies that I actually liked about Yang, actually not one, the first policy was the Democratic dollars, because it's pervasive that our political system right now doesn't allow a regular normal citizen to run, because you gotta have money. And I tell you, I'm gonna stay in this to the end, but that is the only thing that's preventing me from actually breaking through. And if I can get over that hump and actually raise money, it's pretty much it's pretty much part of our plan. I pretty much would win this race. Our story is a little more compelling than our rivals, and there's a lot of desire to have a new representative in this district.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. If there were democracy dollars, you probably would have that list already.
Oh yeah, and I would have a lot of people actually supported me, because when I get people to start jumping into my campaign, once they know, and they ask me, how long you been around and how come you haven't done this,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sad to say, I tell them it's because I don't have any money. So I can reach 1,000 people if I had money, but I can only reach, let's say, 5, because I'm walking around knocking on doors, and that's not going to stop me. Nothing that I've done in my life has been easy, and this is one of those other things that's going to make me a stronger candidate. I'm going to work as hard as I can until a primary day for every single vote that we get.
I get that sense, Sammy. I get the sense that you are a hard-working dude.
Thank you.
And that you're not afraid to about some headwinds, and you've not let obstacles kind of stop you in the past. I hope everybody out there that's listening can consider pitching in to even just a few bucks to help your campaign. Yes. Because I mean, this is why America's great, right? Like, people should be able to go to DC and represent their constituents, even if they haven't been in office for 30 years, maybe especially because they haven't been in DC for 30 years. And, God. A former naval serviceman and detective, I think it's great. A person of color with immigrant roots, like that is as American as it gets. And so, if you're okay, I would love to see if the audience has some questions before we wrap up.
Absolutely.
And so if you guys are out there and you have questions that you want Sammy to take, now is the time to type it into the chat. And I think the first one is from Mike, who's wondering if conservative cops would support you as a Democrat. He's saying, hey, at least many policemen are viewed as typically more conservative politically. Do you think you can get crossover support if you got the nomination, potentially from some Republicans?
That's a great question, Mike. Thank you. Yes, the short answer is yes. Obviously, this district especially is gerrymandered for a Democrat. So whoever wins the primary. So I've actually gotten Republicans, cops, to switch their party affiliation to Democrat, and they're voting for me.
Nice. And what would you say? What would be your message to Republicans who had never voted, or maybe the really conservative Democrats who are thinking, man, this whole left-right thing is just not working for us? Like, what's your message to them?
and I don't know if you. That's why I said I'm neither center left
Mm-hmm.
or center right. I am a center forward. I'm not going to take credit for that phrase. Jay De La Rosa I'm going to have to give him the credit, but that's exactly what I am. I'm a center forward because it's every one of us. It's conservative and certain things, and very liberal in certain things. There's people that are probably think that the government is spending too much money, and now we're at $26 trillion in debt, and this eventually is going to come back home to roost. And they're probably very liberal. They support gay marriage, and they support a whole bunch of other things. So I hate those labels: conservative, Democrat, left, right. It's each policy on its own. Some people like small government that are very libertarian, and they're Democrats because they believe in unions. I'm a Democrat because I believe in the power of the union, and I believe that some forces in the Republican Party are trying to get rid of unions. So that's one of the main reasons why I'm a Republican. But I believe in law and order, and does that make me conservative? I don't know.
Seems like you just want to do the best thing for people, and you're not you're not picking one team over the other, which is I think very, very practical, and it's kind of what we need more of.
Yes.
Let me ask you this. I saw Mike had another question earlier. Have you run into a guy by the name of James Felton Keith? He's running for Congress. Also supports basic income. Has that name crossed your radar before?
Yes, he's we met once. He is running in New York's 13. We haven't had a chance. Obviously, he's running his race against another incumbent, but we haven't had a chance to cross paths again. We actually ran each other at a candidates forum where his district and my district actually border each other. So we met once. Very bright young man, and that's about it.
Yeah. Well, hey, if both of you make it, then we'd get 2 more votes in Congress for freedom dividend.
Yes, indeed. Yes,
so,
indeed.
Thomas Lear wants to know: do you have a preference of Bernie or Joe? And has anyone told you before you look like Obama? That's a nice compliment.
Probably the only time, because I was an apolitical person, so I got to make a small comment on that. The only time that I actually got involved a little bit in politics was during the Obama's first presidential run. I actually took a little time off and went to South Carolina and registered voters for a few days, and I was very, very excited about his first candidacy. As far as Bernie or Joe, I actually went on record and endorsed Joe Biden 3 days ago. So it's not, I tweeted it, so I can't hide it. Yes, I endorsed Joe Biden. I have nothing against Bernie Sanders. So just for the record, I don't want to get killed, but I enjoy Joe Biden because my policies and the way I approach things are more aligned to what he is.
Was that a hard call, or were you kind of leaning Biden from the begining?
I actually was leaning Biden since the beginning, to be honest with you. And I was obviously I was going to let out everything play out. You don't want to weigh in too early. You don't want to weigh in, way out too late. I'm one of those that I believe that we need a new direction in the country. For the record, I'm not campaigning against Donald Trump. I still believe that we need, a new commander-in-chief, somebody that's a little more, that actually cares a little more about the citizens. That you don't try to embarrass them, just because they disagree with you. I don't think the commander-in-chief should be doing stuff like that. But I don't campaign against Donald Trump. But and I would have preferred somebody younger, generational. But I like the way Biden approaches things, always have, since I was young. So I guess it wasn't that hard.
Yeah. Well, clearly he's got a large percentage of support now, and certainly would be a upgrade over the current occupant of the Oval. Is your district? Does your district have Trump supporters? Is it mostly Democratic, or is it kind of mixed?
Yeah, it's mostly Democratic, and like I said, we have pockets of Trump supporters. I've gotten like I said before, I gotten actually a few to switch their party affiliation to Democrat because they want to vote for me. A Republican is never going to win this district. This district is gerrymandered for a Democrat to win.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Jennifer has a question of, what do you think about mailing out a voter's handbook explaining all the things and people on the ballot a month before voting? Do you guys do that in your district? Is that done where all the voters are given kind of like information about the candidates on the ballot?
Jennifer, I love that. And I tell you right now, if I had the money, I would actually do that. You know, there's mailers that we're supposed to, as they recommend you as candidates, to hand out, and rather than handing out a little flyer saying, you know, how great Sammy is, I would put on my mailer, you know, that please vote for me. But actually, I would let them know that, you know, these are the things that, you know, we should be doing. While my opponents are probably going to have enough money to send out these mailers, like I said, if I raise enough money, I would love to get your to implement your idea and mail out just exactly what you just said, Jennifer.
It doesn't sound like the party does that, explaining each of the candidates and their key positions. That they don't do that.
No, they don't because the party, to be fair, both parties are the same way. It is like a cult, and getting involved in politics has been an eye-opening experience for me. Once you are part of the party and you're an elected official, it's like they all circle around each other, and then you get into this echo chamber that is very hard to break. And these guys are talking to each other, and they echo each other. In the meantime, you have the regular voter and the regular citizen out there saying, "Listen, this is what we want. This is what we need. This is," and it's just like, my God, you know, they don't, you know, they just talk to each other, and I tell you, Tom, it's something that's very, very interesting for me to find out when I started running.
Yeah, I mean, it almost sounds like once you get in, you're kind of like a made man, and you know, the system protects you, and doesn't really encourage competition from within the party.
Yeah. But I'm gonna tell you this right now, and you read my lips and anybody else. That's something that I vow not to do. And I'm not gonna stay in Congress 30 years. That's not, you know, that's not something I'm looking to do. I'm actually I like term limits. But one thing, I want to open up, you know, Congress and everything for the regular folk, you know, and one of the promises that I'm making is I'm coming once a month and doing a town hall where probably it's most needed in the district. And I'm gonna make sure that we are, you know, people have access. And another thing that I'm going to introduce, I'm going to put the congressional district on wheels. You know, I'm going to see if it's feasible to have probably my campaign office, or not my campaign office, my congressional office mobile. You know, it's a big district. You know, where we needed more. We're going to park it somewhere. Sammy Ravelo or Sammy Ravelo's congressional office is coming to you, rather than you have to always go to, you know, to a building and, you know, and having to call. Maybe I'll have my people out there roaming around the district every day.
Sounds very accessible, very much more kind of progressive way than, you know, in a way. I remember when I was younger and we did a school trip to DC, and you did feel like you're visiting like the palace, you know, and people had to go and they make appointment and they visit their congressman, and it's like this big thing. But I think you're advocating approach where like the congressmen work for us.
Correct. 100% correct.
Right. It's not like some privilege to get an appointment to talk to my freaking congressman.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. Manny wanted some clarification. He says, "Hey, I just joined. Who is this Sammy? Is he Yang Gang or only a UBI supporter? How would you characterize your relationship with the Yang Gang?"
full disclosure, one of the members of my staff is a fully vetted and supporter of Andrew Yang. He actually went and canvassed for Andrew Yang in New Hampshire and in Iowa. He was the one that introduced me to UBI, and so I don't know if I'm already a part of the Yang Gang, but I'm more. I consider myself a humanity first candidate. The policies that I want to implement are for sure. We got to think about our humans first. So I'm hoping that answers your question, Manny. Labels is dangerous only because if you don't agree 100% with people that are in this group, you get outcasted. So I just want to make sure that that's first. I do like Andrew Yang, though, for the record.
Yeah, well, I think Jay Della Rosa was the guy that got you on this channel, and I'm pretty sure he's been in the gang for a while. So any friend of a Yang gang is kind of in some ways a member of the Yang gang. Let me ask you this, Sammy. By the way, do you have another like 5 or 10 minutes? Can we go for a little longer?
Yes, absolutely. Let's go. Let's go. I'm having fun.
Let me describe what are. And now this is going to be controversial because I'm going to describe what I think are some characteristics of the Yang gang.
Okay.
And based on that, you tell me which of those you say, that one I'm not really sure about versus like this one is what I really think is strong. So one of the characteristics I think of the Yang gang is that we support leaders who are not kind of baked into the establishment system and who are willing to look at problems in completely new ways, and where there are no like sacred cows or like this label or that label. We just want to solve a problem. The second one is that we definitely, a lot of us in the Yang gang are big fans of looking at numbers and data and facts and evidence, and less on like slogans and feelings alone. A third one is a concern over the future of working class people in an economy that is changing, like and technology that's changing, right before our eyes in the blink of an eye. Mm-hmm. I think those are some elements of what is a Yangian approach to government. Yeah. Do any of those resonate with you?
Well, I think I answered at least I think I answered all three throughout this interview. Yes, and you know what I love about Andrew Yang and reading his book. And by the way, just for your readers, I haven't read the whole book. I'm reading pieces because the campaign does not allow me to just sit down and bask in a good book. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I like about Yang is math. Let's make sure that because math is a science that's exact. I think that's the only science that is exact. 1 + 1 is 2, and anywhere in the world, and math doesn't lie. And one of the things that I like about him is that, and I say math in the traditional way, and math is let's make America think again. By the way, I understand what math is, and yes, let's think about our problems, and let's just not just say, for example, Medicare for all, or Green New Deal, like every other Democratic candidate is just say Green New Deal, guys, great, without let's peel the onion. You're talking about 80 million, federal jobs. Are we really? The math doesn't tell us that we're going to be able to, give out 80 million jobs. So, but we got to be careful. But believe me, and please don't take this that I'm against climate change. I'm just saying that, a lot of people, like you said, they slogans for every little thing. Mm-hmm. So the short answer to those three questions was a resounding yes. I am for all three of them.
Then I'm going to say that you may not know it, but you are Yang Gang.
Well, if you officially anoint me Yang Gang, then I'll I'll take the honor.
Well, I would say you are. You know, it's a grassroots movement. So Jennifer wanted to clarify that in Colorado, the government mails out these booklets that lay out each candidate and their key positions. They're very detailed, and they're bipartisan. It's very similar, actually. Now living, I'm joining you from Zurich, Switzerland, where every 3 months, because it's a direct democracy here, they send out these thick like policy briefs, and people take it really seriously. And you know, they basically, you know, turnout is like 60-70% over here, and they vote every 3 months. And so I'm curious, like, do you think? I think the idea behind this is that rather than having every candidate spend all this money on, you know, primetime TV ads or radio ads, or printing out their own binder and then sending it all out themselves, that there's a role for the government to say, well, look, all these people are on the ballot. We should give them an equal voice and let you compare them side by side in a structured way. What do you think about that?
I love it. I love it. And I think not just me, I think if we were to do that in my district, you know, humbly, I think I would win in a landslide, because, you know, our service, like I said, our service to our country and our community has been vast. And, you know, since my experiences have been pretty interesting, and I think we would win in a landslide. But we would, if we were to implement that here, I would be all for it, 100%.
Yeah, it would level the playing field for sure.
Oh yes,
yeah.
Oh yes, yes.
Well, Sammy, it's we're about at the time that we're gonna have to say goodbye.
Yes.
But I just wanted to thank you for coming on the show and being available and open and candid with us. I hope everybody out there who's watching and sees us on replay really takes a close look at Sammy. If you're in the district, for sure. And even if you're not in the district, you know, that is the United States Congress. And if we get more open-minded, kind of fresh thinking representatives from every district, wherever they are, it's going to be good for the country. And so, you know, take a look at this guy.
Thank you.
I would say, you know, immigrant, service member in the U.S. Navy, police detective, and a guy who wants to solve problems.
Yes.
You know, we could do worse.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. If you give me an opportunity before I leave, I wanna leave on this note. All right. Please go to sammyravelo.com and donate. Please. Your donations would help us enormously. And I said, I'm one of the few candidates that has it supports the freedom dividend, that really has an opportunity to win. And lastly, I just want to say goodbye, nerds.
Goodbye, nerds. Hey, one last thing, Sammy, I got to tell you, one of my best friends lived in the DR, and he always told me that Dominicans work really hard, and they know how to put their shoulder into something. I know that's probably not true for all Dominicans, but you strike me as one of those folks that my buddy always told me about. He's like, "Oh, you tell me about the Asian work ethic. You don't know what work is. You need to meet a Dominican."
Well, I think we both are very hardworking, and we both put the word immigrant where it really belongs. You know, we come here and we actually help build this country, 100%.
Right on, brother. Get it done. All right.
Tom, yes. Please keep in touch, okay? Please.
Hey, I look forward to it, man. I got a good feeling that you may have a little bit of an upset, and we may be talking to Congressman Ravello not too soon. So
thank you. Appreciate it.
Good luck, brother. Give him hell out there, all right?
All right. You got it.
Peace.
Thank you. All right.
Bye.
Bye.